Very good. Hi, everybody. My name is Conrad Agramont. I'm the Director of Technology Services here at Agile IT, and thank you for coming to our webinar for today. Today's session is going to be Agile IT EMS, a part of our webinar series. Today we're going to talk about understanding Microsoft EMS, what it is, and how it relates to you. So with me, I have Travis Liles, who's a Partner Technology Specialist at Microsoft, and Brian Long, who's our Sales Director, also here at Agile IT. So again, thank you for coming. Just a couple quick notes. We are recording this session. If you have any questions, we'll answer them at the end. Some we might answer in while we go along. But please post all of your questions in the question window, and we'll be sure to get to it at the end. The session is really only 30 minutes long, so we're going to try and really get through things and hit the right amount of content and move along. Like I said, this is a part of a 3-part webinar series. So this is the first part. In each subsequent one, we start to put a little bit focus on, one, the user. How do they use EMS, and what's their behavior, and what should they expect, and why does it help them? And then the last part, part 3, is really from the administrator's point of view. So now that it's been set up and deployed, what are some of the common things administrators need to do to protect their data and to protect their organization using the Enterprise Mobility Suite? As you can see here are the times. So the next one will be on November 3rd, and then after that, November 17th. All you need to do to register, just the way you did before, hopefully, go to agileiT.com and you'll see a Register Now button at the top. Okay, so our agenda today, again, looks like a lot. We'll cover a number of different things, but hopefully at the end you'll get a better feel for what EMS is. Travis is also going to show us a really cool demo as we move along, and then we'll talk about our POC and how to get started. So really the demos are really the place where you see all of these things come together. Okay, so Enterprise Mobility Suite is a new offering that Microsoft has, and you know the challenge that we see for many of our customers. So at Agile IT, we've moved many organizations up into the cloud, both in Azure and especially Office 365. And now that they've really kind of taken this next wave of moving from old servers running behind the firewall and file servers running behind the firewall and feeling this connectivity and protection inside, which still is there, now we're moving in a much more cloud environment where our data is in multiple locations and we're using lots of different types of devices. So the big question that many enterprises have, and a lot of our customers are, well, how do I protect it? Both the application and intellectual property that we have, as well as the data that we have. And the old mechanism of well, just put some permissions on the folder, that'll protect it. Now it's really about, how do I protect the data no matter where it travels, no matter where it rests, no matter what device that it's on. So Microsoft has this Enterprise Mobility Suite, which really is great at looking at all the different layers of security that you're going to need to protect that data, whether that's your identity and understanding that, well, who's accessing this data? You can do more than just username and passwords. You can do things like multi-factor authentication, where they're authenticating based off of a voice phone call, a text message, or an application on their mobile devices. So there's a lot of really great stuff there for identity in terms of making sure that the right people are accessing the data that they're supposed to have. Microsoft Intune is a service that's been around for quite some time, but it's also being retooled to some degree to really focus on not just managing the PCs, but also the applications and devices. Again, thinking about a kind of a distributed world in the cloud environment. How do I protect my how do I provision, manage, and protect my corporate assets that are all over the world? And then lastly, protecting your data. So again, how do we make sure that the protection of that data goes with that data wherever that data may need to go? It may need to be on a laptop, it may need to be on a USB device, it may need to be on a server, but at some point I also want to restrict who has access to that and where are they allowed to access the data. So when you put all these things together, all these multiple layers, this is what really makes the Enterprise Mobility Suite shine. And so I'm going to really hand it over to Travis here to really talk a little bit about those layers and to talk about those 3 key pillars of EMS.
All right, thanks. So yeah, my name is Travis Liles from Microsoft. I'm a partner technology strategist, so I spend a lot of time really working on kind of this EMS and cloud and security side of our offerings. So where I'll start off with is really talking about the first kind of how Microsoft came up with EMS. And basically we just looked at kind of what's out there, right? There's IT and there's the user, and from a security standpoint, those two things really never see eye to eye, right? Because the less security we have, the easier it is to log in, but of course that's more exposure and surface attack area that IT has to deal with. Conversely, the more amount of security we have, the harder it is for users to interact. So we want to start at the user level, and what's interesting about this, and we'll kind of see this theme throughout, is that we really look at the user as kind of the focal point. So regardless of device endpoint, you're able to use this, and what I mean by that is iOS, Android, Windows, Windows Phone, right, tablets, PCs. We're able to manage this, and even at the application level. So really it's about that user, right, being able to have whatever it is they want. So we identify the user and who they are. Are they active? Are they part of our cloud-based Active Directory? If they are, then at that point we start saying, okay, here you are, you're this person, and you have access to do these things, right? You're able to log on to the intranet, you're able to get certain applications brought onto you. We're going to apply policies to you. So we've kind of stepped through really two things. We identify that user with our cloud directory. We bring them into the device management fold with Microsoft Intune. And then the last part is we apply things like rights management. So really quickly, with the user not having to have any other credentials other than what they're traditionally logging on with, so myself, it's Travis at Microsoft.com, my device, whatever device it is, consumer-owned or corporate-owned, I'm able to log on to that log on, get access, and all of those policies and procedures come down to me. I have the device that I love, and I'm able to interact with that content in a secure way. And that's really what makes up and kind of is the genesis of the Enterprise Mobility Suite. So that's kind of where we start with that. And then in the next few slides, what we'll do is really kind of dive into each of these components independently. So we'll start at the top here. And the first piece of EMS, it's again broke up into three pieces you saw on that previous slide, and the first is Azure Active Directory Premium. So if you're an Office 365 customer, you're already leveraging Azure, you're already using Azure Active Directory, you just may not know it, being exposed as that. That is your directory in the cloud. What's interesting about this is that we allow for you to synchronize your on-premise Active Directory with this cloud-based Active Directory, meaning that you don't have to have new usernames, you don't have to have new passwords. It's that same user that exists on-prem existing in the cloud. So again, if you're an Office 365 customer, you already have it. So what do we do with Azure Active Directory Premium? Well, we build some extra features on top of that. So again, we connect, it can be multi-forest, we have SLAs around it, of course, centrally managed, so group management, being able to access that content wherever you are. And the cool part about this, and I guess cool is not maybe the best term, but from a technical standpoint, what's really great about this is that once that cloud identity is moved from on-prem to the cloud, you really unleash that identity to do lots of amazing things. And what you'll see in one of this is the ability to log on to other software as a service applications. So when you move into this, right, if this is a solution that you decide on, you're not locked into just Microsoft and just Office 365. You can do integration with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, which, yeah, those are all public properties, right? But there's no way to manage those identities. Before, now you have a way to manage those identities and put security around them and let a user like myself, right? Let's say I'm managing my social profile for the company, Travis Liles at Microsoft.com can manage Twitter, and if I leave the company, we just remove my access. I don't have to see usernames, I don't have to see passwords for those accounts. We're also able to do some really interesting things like multi-factor authentication, which I'm actually going to show you here in a little bit, as well as some ability to look at logons and trouble, right, that might come up. So once we move applications into the cloud, the question becomes, how do I manage that securely? This isn't my internal directory. People are using software as a service applications. How can I make sure that that stuff's consistent? Well, we can actually do advanced threat analytics and say, Travis logged on from Portland at 11:11 a.m., and now all of a sudden at 11:15 he's logging on from Brazil. So that's a bad thing, right? That's not a possibility. So we can monitor some of those things as well. So some really great stuff within the Azure Active Directory Premium. Okay, we can hit the next slide here. Next up is our manageability features. So what we're doing here is this is that Intune component, right? Step one, Azure AD. Step two, the Intune side of it. And this is really all about devices. And we take a slightly different approach than some of the other vendors out there in terms of how we think about managing devices. So one is you're not setting up something completely new. We started with that Active Directory. You already have AD. You move that into the cloud-enabled AD. Next, we put this device management on top of it. And what we do is we really protect the app. So we do some things inside of the applications, which we call MAM, or Mobile Application Management, which is something that the other vendors really aren't able to provide because we create Office, right? So the point of mobile MAM is that if I create a document in Office, the reason I created that in Office is because I've got a lot of power. I've got fonts, I've got tables, I've got templates. I have all these really great things that makes Office powerful, and I don't want to lose that as my different users open up this document on their different devices, their iOS devices, their Android devices, their Windows PCs, and even in Macs. I don't want to lose that richness that is Office. So with mobile application management, what we do is we're able to keep the fidelity, right, because we have mobile applications across all of the platforms. We're able to keep that fidelity, but we're able to say, if you are not a member of this organization, if you are not managed by Intune, we're not even going to let you open up this document to begin with. We're not going to let you open it up in the Google Docs. We're not going to let you open it up in other places. We're going to keep you in this world of Office 365. In this example, we're going to keep you in this world of Office. We're going to keep it secure, and we're going to keep you from saving it out to somewhere else. As a company, we invest in OneDrive. We invest in Office. Mobile application management lets us keep those documents, lets us keep those items inside of that world in a wrapper, but still gives them a really great experience. They're not using a wrappered version of Office. They're not using a web-based version of something else. They're using the full fidelity document, and we're able to keep that inside of our environment. So what we really do is provide the best experience for the end user. Office documents open in Office, not in other applications. And for IT, we keep it in the same place. We keep it in OneDrive for Business. We keep it in SharePoint. We maintain fidelity so that we don't have security issues and stuff later on down the line. We can also do conditional access, meaning that all that stuff I just talked about is great, but how do I get a user to that point? Well, that's where conditional access comes into play. So for me to open up a document, the first thing it may say is, okay, Travis, you haven't registered your device. To open up this document, first you've got to register your device, and then we think back to that previous slide on the Azure AD. I put in my username and password credentials, I get my policies, and then boom, I'm brought into this environment here. And then the last thing I'll comment on is that it's the notes that I've made up to date are user-initiated. So user, I go out, buy a new phone, and I'm able to use that and log on and get my access. We can also enroll and manage in bulk large device deployments, especially on iOS. So some really good stuff there as well, so that if you are a company that has the asset, you can do bulk enrollment and then hand those out to the users, but conversely, you don't have to. If I lose my phone right now, walk into my car, I could go buy another phone, pop a SIM card into it, and get access to all this content again with the same policies and not even having to do anything really major. And since it's on the cloud, all that data, all those things are there. Okay? And then the last leg of the Azure, or pardon me, of our Enterprise Mobility Suite is Azure Rights Management. And you can just go ahead and let this slide build out. And what we have here is taking that to the next level of, okay, I have a device, I have a user, they're cloud enabled, they have their device where they're in this world of Microsoft, and we've got apps to them that we want them to have. They're using documents, but we want to make sure that those documents are properly taken care of if they leave our environment, right? So everything we've talked about up to now is getting the user on board and then bringing them in so that they can access content. Well, what about if that content leaks out? We have certain documents and things. Microsoft is a perfect example. We don't want to let the Surface Book leak out to the general public, because that's competitive advantage that we lose. We don't want those things to happen. So there are places inside of our environment that, of course, standard security permissions I don't have access to. But what if I do get to that document? How do I take care of that? And the rights management here is one way that I can make sure that not only is it based off of who can see it, but then even to open that document, you have to have special permissions, or an email to have special permissions. So what we're showing here in this kind of busy slide is that we can say, take those user credentials that we talked about in the Azure Active Directory and say, if Travis is on this email, he can open this document. And even more granular, Travis can open this document, read it, and edit it. But maybe Conrad can only open it. So if we'll give him permission to open it, he can see it, but he's not going to be able to actually do anything with it other than read it. And in fact, if he shares it out, we have a paper trail, quote unquote, a digital paper trail to be able to see who does it. And if that content gets on a USB stick and left at a coffee shop somewhere and somebody puts it in their machine, as soon as they try to open that document, it actually is going to look and say, are you Travis? No, you're not. And if you can't put these credentials in, this is basically just a worthless piece of data that you can't do anything with. So that's taking care of that security aspect of, we've got secure users, we have secure applications, and inside of that we have secure documents. So that's really kind of running across the entire enterprise mobility suite and the three components that are a part of it. So let's kind of talk about this better together, and then we'll get into it and give you a look at how this works. So Office 365 and EMS are definitely better together, and you kind of heard some of my comments earlier on about, you know, the mobile application management, about users, right, and getting them in, and then this information rights management. Well, the great thing about all of the things that I've shown is that, or talked about to date or so far, is that all of those things exist inside of Office 365 at a very, we'll call it small level. So you have that directory that exists, right, when you're using Office 365. You have some slices, if you will, of enterprise mobility management as part of Office 365, and you also have information rights management. But what we build upon on that is more features, right? So we have the base level amount of features that exist in there. So you can deploy apps, you can manage data across the mobile applications. When you start to add EMS into it, you get that support for other mobile workloads. So software as a service applications. If you have Salesforce, you know, if you have routers, if you have Concur, you can integrate that when you start to add the enterprise mobility suite into that. And that's actually what this has given us a view of right here. So single sign-on for Office 365 and basic multi-factor for Office 365. Well, that's awesome, but what if I have, you know, other third-party SaaS applications in that first pillar of identity and access management? The Enterprise Mobility Suite adds that ability, so that Twitter, that Facebook, that Instagram, that Salesforce, I mentioned Concur, there's like 3,500 software as a service applications that we connect into our Azure Active Directory Premium that you can now do single sign-on, so that existing Active Directory username can now log on to Dropbox, Box, you know, Google, lots and lots of different applications by using the same username and password, right? So that's where we step that up above that Microsoft world. We move to that middle pillar of mobile device management. So device settings management, selective wipe, are some of the basic ones. When we move beyond that, we have PC management. We get a lot of really interesting things like Wi-Fi profiles, the ability to you know, push VPN profiles to Android and iOS devices, conditional access of, if you're not a registered device, you can't get access to these parts of our environment. And then the last side on rights management service, we offer up rights management service across, of course, on the Office applications and inside emails out of box with Office 365, but you can take that and use SDKs to extend that into other parts of your organization. So if you're an organization that deals with images, you could take the rights management service and apply it to that. If you're a architect and you deal with you know, CAD images and those sort of things, you can apply rights management and build on top of those applications. Same thing applies with multi-factor authentication. Out of box, we're going to support that on the Microsoft apps, but that MFA can extend to these third-party applications as well, and Enterprise Mobility Suite opens up the door to be able to do that. Okay, next section here. All right, so if you guys can hand me access here, I will share out my web browser and give you guys some kind of looks at these things. Okay. I'm going to say show my screen here. You know when you guys can see that. Should be good. All right, screen sharing. Here we go. So let's let me minimize this here and kind of get this out of the way. what I'm doing here is I'm just on a very simple web browser here, and what I'm going to do is show how multi-factor authentication works. So we're going to have to set some some thought here of kind of what's happened. I'm an Active Directory user, Azure Active Directory, right? So I've already signed in. I'm an Office 365 user, and my account has been enabled for multi-factor authentication, okay? So what I'm going to do is try to log on to the Outlook Web Access. So here I start to do it, we see it spinning, and then what happens is a couple of things. I've got this branded page here, which you can see, so an image that I brought, so you can do custom branding, you can build this out more than I have, but this is kind of a basic look at what that is. So corporate image there in the middle, and then over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to try to log in. So my password's already cached, so I'm going to click sign in. So what you'll see pop up here is that we have multi-factor authentication turned on. And a couple of ways this can be done, right? In the past, you've probably seen things like the little keys, the key fobs. Well, right now, the way that we're looking at this, Microsoft is everybody has a mobile device. So what I have on my phone right now is what's known as an authenticator app. So this authenticator app, it's like 90 seconds, spits out a new code. So it's exactly like what you're used to on those fob type. So I've got my phone up here. This is these apps are available for iOS, for Android, for Windows Phone, and I'm going to pop in my code here that's currently up, and I'm going to log in. Now, if I didn't have this authenticator app on my phone, I could actually say use a different verification method, and I could have it simply send me a text message, right? We see those things in like banking software, for example, where your bank has to send you a code. We're doing that same exact thing. And that's it, right? I'm on. So something I know, my username and password, something I have, which is my phone, and it generates a new, 6-digit code every so often, and I'm able to pump that in and get access to this environment. What's interesting about that is we can do that here in just a simple web browser. We can do this for SharePoint. We can do this for OneDrive for Business. We can do this on the mobile apps and even coming at this from mobile devices. And if you have an iOS device, you can actually just use the biometric thumbprint reader that's on there and skip putting the code in as well. So another layer of protection, right? So what I know, username and password, what I have my phone, and what I have a second time, which is my thumbprint or my fingerprint that allows me access to that. So that's a real quick look at multi-factor authentication, right? So before I could move past this, I had to have something. And if we kind of think back to that slide that I talked about earlier, where we can show where different people log on from different areas, that's an example of that, where if I logged on here, I've got an IP address from Portland. If I logged on from somewhere else in the next couple of minutes, we would have something pop up and we could automatically initiate another challenge, or we could disable an account. So some really smart intelligence inside of Enterprise Mobility Suite. And then really quickly here, let me show you this other kind of real quick view of the encryption. So here I am in my Outlook Web Access. I go to create a new email. So we click that real quick, and then when I hit this little drop down to the side here, I have set permissions. And to the right, you're going to see some various things pop up. So by default, it's no restrictions. But what I can do is put different types of encryption on top of this. So I can say anybody at Microsoft can read this and do with it really whatever they want, right? They can read it. But if it goes outside the organization, they don't have an at Microsoft on their email, they're not going to be able to open it. I can say FTE. So Microsoft has a lot of vendor employees. If this goes out and I send it to everybody at Microsoft, if they're a vendor, they're not going to be able to open it. Only people that are designated as full-time employees are going to be able. And you can see some interesting things in here, right? All rights except copy and print. So I can send it to them. They can't copy the text and put that in another email, and they can't print it. So I can really put a lot of really great things here, and some of my favorites are do not forward and do not reply all. So for an example, if I say happy birthday to my boss, I can put a do not reply all, right? I just want to alert everybody, let them know it's his birthday, but I don't want to see every other person in the organization that replies back. So some kind of nice ways of giving yourself some time back and not flooding an inbox as well. So some interesting ways in which these permissions can be applied. Mostly you can think about it in terms of safety in your environment, okay? So that's it for kind of my side there of the presentation and the demo. So I can hand it back over to Conrad.
Great, thanks. Let me just put the slides back up there. There we go. All right, Travis, thanks for showing that and going through the slides. Much appreciated. So, in looking at that, and again, in the next two webinars, we're going to go a little bit deeper, especially from the admin side and the user side, of some additional scenarios in which they would use the EMS suite. But one of the things that we did at Agile was really put a proof of concept together for customers, because really what they want to be able to do is put it in their hands and really see it. So the proof of concept is really it is when you do the configuration, it's essentially a production setup. Everything's configured in your environment, your directory, all those sorts of things. If you don't have a license for EMS, we can use trial licenses, so those things are available. But we just limit the scope in terms of the type of policies that we'll create. We limit the scope in terms of how many workstations we'll configure. This way you can really see it working in your environment with your workstations, your directory, your devices, leveraging your Office 365 deployment. So it really gives you a good feel of what you're going to need to do when you decide to put it throughout your entire organization. So really that's something that we've created. We have a couple customers that have already been going through it and going through it now. So it really works out really well for them to understand, because while the solution is great, the seamlessness for users are great. There's lots of pieces to set up both in Azure, Office 365, your rights management. So that's where the expertise from our engineers can really make sure there's a smooth transition into evaluating what's in EMS in terms of a solution. So really for the next steps, when you get going, the next person from Agile IT you'll really be talking to is Brian Long, and he's our sales director. So I'll leave it up to Brian here to talk about the next steps and the upcoming webinars. Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Conrad. I appreciate everybody's time today. We are pretty much out of time at this point. It's 11:30 Pacific. And we're trying to run through these fairly quickly so that you can get a good overview, but we know there's a lot of information that we can't cover in 30 minutes. So that's why we've broken it down into 3 separate sessions from 3 separate perspectives. And we're also going to be sending over the slides from today, along with 2 data sheets on full breakdown of the Enterprise Mobility Suite for Microsoft. Feel free to contact us at sales@agileiT.com. I would love to talk to you more about how we can help. If this was information that you guys needed and needed to hear and implement at your organization, please do contact us. So with that, I'll go ahead and close the meeting for today. If you can, register for the next 2 sessions, and we'd love to have you.
Great. If there's any other additional questions, please submit it into the questions box, and we'll answer them for you.
Yeah, definitely on for minutes. Any Q&A.
Okay, so here we have a question. Do I need to purchase anything else to enable rights management if we're going to use EMS? Yeah, so if you're going to deploy EMS, so EMS as a suite has lots of different capabilities. If you already have a technology that you're using for multi-factor authentication, or this example, rights management, you can still leverage EMS. It isn't an all or nothing thing. You can integrate it with a lot of the technologies that you already have to date. So it'll just allows you to expand and cover everything, where today you may have kind of put together different point solutions. So now EMS kind of gives you one brand, but you can definitely integrate it with what you have.
Yep. Yeah, and you'll get some of it if you're an Office 365 customer already. As I mentioned, it'll be specific to the Office platform, and if you want to extend that, that's really where EMS comes in nice, and being able to extend that encryption to other types of documents and other things in your environment.
Great. There were some other questions in the board, and we responded. If there's anything else, if you have any other questions, you can email me at conrad.a@agileiT.com. You can email Brian or anybody else on the sales staff to learn more about the proof of concept at sales@agileiT.com. Again, Travis, thank you so much for taking your time to help us with the session, and thank you to everybody who took time out of their day to listen to the webinar. And we'd love your feedback, and we'd love to talk to you some more in the upcoming parts of the webinar series. So thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, bye now.